I'm I.
I'm I, and Pierre.
Here, aye.
Pierre, I.
Planning Commission, yeah. Do you have an item that you're here on?
Okay, that motion is passed and those minutes are approved. The next item would be public appearances or introductions. There being no one in the city commission room, unless someone presents themselves and Dwayne tells us someone's there, we'll deal with it at that time, I think.
Chairman Pierre, we do have somebody here now. I'm just finding out which issue they're here to address.
Okay, I don't know if I caught all that.
We have someone in the room, and Dwayne's trying to determine if she's there for an item on the agenda or if she's there for a public appearance otherwise.
This is for the R4 multiple family residential to B2 highway business, Lot 1 Outlot C of Modrigger's Outlot. So when that item comes up.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Okay. All right, so let's move on then to the consent items, the consent item rather, which is to establish the next regular meeting as the date for a public hearing to consider a conditional use permit for a self-storage facility in a B2 highway business district on Lot 1 of Outlot C of Modrigger Outlots and the east 370 feet of Lot 10 of Tucker's third edition and parcel B in the northwest quarter of section 17, township 93 north, range 55 west, as measured on the line dividing said two parcels, all being in the city and county of Yankton, South Dakota. Joseph and Roberta Kleinschmidt owners. The address, the west side of the 1000 block of Ferdig Avenue. So, which is there a motion and seconded to establish the next regular meeting as the consent for that consent item?
Haley so moves.
Andy second.
Motion made and seconded to establish that consent item for the next regular meeting. Roll call, please.
Becht.
Speck, I.
Becht, I. Womble.
Womble, aye.
Womble, I. Winandy.
Andy, aye.
Winandy, I. Syme.
I'm I.
I'm I. Healy.
Healy, aye.
Healy, I. And Chairman Pierre.
Here, aye.
Here, I.
Okay, so we'll move on to old business. And the first action item, this is the time and place for the public hearing to consider a rezoning from R4 multiple family residential to B2 highway business on Lot 1 of Outlet C of Modrigger Outlots in the east 370 feet of Lot 10 of Tucker's third edition and parcel B in the northwest quarter of section 17, township 93 north, range 55 west, as measured on the line dividing said two parcels, all being in the city and county of Yankton, South Dakota. Joseph and Roberta Kleinschmidt are the owners. The address is the west side of the 1000 block of Ferdig Avenue. Staff has prepared a summary with comments of the rezoning request. And attached to that is a plat, colored plat, identifying the proposed rezone from R4 to B2, and also the application or permit request. So, Mr. Mingo, any further comments or information that you want to add or needed to be added at this time?
Maybe just briefly, since we do have somebody in the audience for this issue, I'll talk a little bit about the map itself and the area being rezoned. It's across the street to the west of Fertig Avenue, across the street from Manitou or Gale, which is an I-1 industrial district. There's B2 highway business to the south. There's B2 highway business to the northeast. And then surrounding the proposed rezoning area is R4 multiple family. As I discussed in the memo, it's pretty typical for there to be transition areas occurring between higher intensity uses like industrial uses and lesser intensity uses like single family residential. Those transitions occur through different types of commercial zoning designations and then higher density residential zoning designations. This proposal is based on those criteria. There is not a specific reference to this location in our comprehensive development plan. That is just informational only. It doesn't mean it's a good idea or a bad idea. It just means there isn't a specific reference, and that's information that you should have when making a recommendation. Based on the development that's occurred to the south of the location, staff is recommending approval of this rezoning to follow suit with that expansion of that transition zone. I have received one contact regarding this project or this rezoning from a neighboring property owner. Mr. Leonard Christensen called, and he said he was not opposed to the rezoning and any projects that the owners might have planned there. He had concerns about fire danger as it related to the forested or wooded areas to the south. So that would be a code enforcement thing that we would take care of separately, but I just wanted to make sure and pass along those comments to you. And with that, I would be available for any questions the Planning Commission may have.
We open it up for questions or comments from the Planning Commission.
This is Spec. I'm looking at this plat, and it appears that the diagonal areas going to the south and west were maybe supposed to have been right-of-ways or roads at some point in this grid. And so I'm wondering if that will have any effect on this proposed change.
That's a really good question. Those are old railroad property remnants, not street or utility corridors. And when that railroad property was liquidated, the adjoining owners were given an opportunity to purchase some of that property. This is way before my time, so I don't know all the history on it. But how it ended up was the Kleinschmidts ended up owning that corridor all the way to the western edge of it, which is a substantial distance beyond where this rezoning is proposed. And so this rezoning is only proposing a portion of what the Kleinschmidts own of the old railroad corridor, not all the way heading west through the middle of the R4 district.
Since it's the same owner, then Dave, no property access issues to deal with or anything of that nature.
Correct. If there's a subdivision at some point, we'd have to have that discussion. Always a tough discussion when it comes to old railroad corridor property. You know, from the city's perspective, the best case scenario is the adjoining property owners all split it and it attaches to every lot incrementally as it goes. But that is not what happened here. But that would be a part of a discussion that would need to be had at some point when there's a subdivision associated with it.
Any further comments or questions for staff? Is there any public comments? And if there are, I'd ask you to step to the podium and identify yourself and your residential address, and then go ahead and address the commission. Because I think what I heard is that there are no questions.
That's correct. They're just here for informational purposes.
Okay. Okay, if there aren't any further comments or questions from the commission or any public comments, is there a motion regarding this action item?
This is when Andy, I would move to approve the rezoning.
9 seconds.
So we have a motion and second to approve the rezoning request. Action item number 1. Roll call, please.
Womble.
Womble, aye.
Womble, I. Wenandy.
Andy, I.
Wenandy, I. Syme.
I'm I.
Syme, I. Healy.
Healy, aye.
Healy, I. Specht.
Spec I.
Specht, I. And Chairman Pierre.
Here, aye.
Here, I.
Okay, that motion is passed. And October 26th, 2020, the City Commission will establish November 9th as the date for a public hearing before the City Commission.
And if I may, for those folks in the audience, they'll receive another letter that stipulates that date as a hearing. So you'll see a letter that looks very similar with the same map in it, just to let you know about that hearing also.
I guess I'll ask, does that prompt any questions from those present that we can clarify for you?
I guess I just have one question. Is that going to be more storage units, or is that like just another matter altogether for a different meeting?
That's a great question. This action is just on the rezoning, so it would permit anything that would be able to locate or be an occupancy in that zoning district. Yes, there is a pending conditional use permit for additional self-storage facility units, but that doesn't necessarily have to happen as a part of an approval of a rezoning. The rezoning is a totally separate issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. We previously established as a consent item a public hearing to consider the conditional use permit for a self-storage facility, which we'll take up on the same parcel or piece of property next meeting. All right, moving on to the next, to new business. And the next action item, which is, this is the time and place for a plat review of lots 9 and 10 in Block 8 and lots 12 and 13 in Block 9 of Ridgeway North Subdivision in the city of Yankton in the northeast quarter of Section 6, Township 93 North, Range 55 west of the 5th Prime Meridian, Yankton County, South Dakota. Kirby Holper Construction Company, Inc. is the owner. Location is 2800 block of Arlington Avenue. And you have with your packet a plat review from staff, a plat location map, and and the actual survey plat for these parcels. Mr. Mingo, anything, any additional information or any comments?
Nothing in addition to what's in the packet. This was all covered under a previously approved subdividers agreement for the entire Ridgeway North subdivision. Just basically identifying the more specific property lines and pin locations that need to occur for us to issue building permits at these locations.
Any comments or questions from the commission? Hearing none. Any public comments, and I guess is YouTube up now, Dave?
Yes, YouTube has been up now for about 15 minutes or so. So
we have no one appearing in the meeting room on this item.
And we don't have any YouTube comments either.
All right, is there a motion and second on this action item?
Spec, I'll move to approve.
Need a second?
Healy will
Andy,
second.
second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this plat. A roll call, please.
Andy,
Andy, aye.
aye. Syme,
Aye.
aye. Healy,
Healy, aye.
aye. Specht,
Spec, aye.
aye. Womble,
Womble, aye.
aye. And Pierre,
Pierre, aye.
aye.
Okay, that motion passed, and it will go to the City Commission later this evening, the regular meeting, to review the plat and make a final decision. Okay, moving on to the next item, which is the September 2020 building permit report. Dave, you got any comments about this? Another good month, looks like.
Yeah, pretty good month. Things are starting to plateau. We didn't have any new housing unit permit requests in the last month, but we're still way out of our 10-year average. And if we discount that one large project in 2019, that being the Mount Marty project, we're substantially ahead of last year and what our 10-year average would be for this time. So I think 2020 is actually a really good construction year.
I did see one new single-family home at 2400 Burley Street.
I stand corrected.
I was wondering about that address.
I am seeing 2400 Burley, which would be, let me move my map around here and take a look quick. So that would be the owner's, that would be J.W. Tramp's address, would be 2400 Burley. The actual address of the permit is 1805 Dakota Street. So that'd be over in Summit Heights. Does that make sense?
It does. Any other comments from the commission about the building report? Hearing none, I think that takes care of our agenda for this meeting. Dave, anything you need to add before we move for adjournment?
I would just say feel free to call me if you have any specific questions about anything that's in the memo. Our November 9th meeting, as I wrote in the cover memo, we do have a variance request related to a sign issue. Please remember that that's a quasi-judicial action. So if you are contacted by somebody, make sure to tell them to go ahead and call our office to determine ways to participate in that meeting. The other piece of information I need to mention is that I will be on the road at that meeting time looking for a spot with good signal, so I won't be sitting here with my office decor in the background when you talk to me at that time. So I'll find somewhere with a good signal and be sure to be at the meeting that way. That's all I have.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Healy moves to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Syme seconds.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yep. Okay. Syme.
Syme, aye.
Syme, I. Healy.
Healy, aye.
Healy, I. Specht.
Speck, aye.
Specht, I. Womble.
Womble, aye.
Womble, I. Wenandy.
Andy, aye.
Wenandy, I. And Chairman Pierre.
Here, aye.
Pierre, I. Thanks, guys.
We are adjourned. Thanks for tuning in. See you next month.